Hey guys, this is Natalie over at Chaos for Kisses. I wanted to talk to you today about the idea of having catchphrases with your kids. I have noticed that when I'm trying to have a conversation with my kids and I'm trying to teach them a new skill, oftentimes I find myself having the same conversation over and over and over again. And it's really, really tiring. And so I started creating catchphrases. So this way, I only have to have that conversation with my kids one time. And then, after that, the catchphrases that we create bring them back to that conversation with just a few short words, and they're able to move on quickly. Oftentimes with young children especially, but really anybody, even adults, if you ask them to change what they're doing in that moment, they will resist you. And they don't want to stop and slow down and think about what you're saying to them because you're interrupting what they're doing. Rather than interrupting what my kids are doing, I prefer to just give them a quick reminder, and that way they can adjust what they're working on and continue on. And so I have started having a quick conversation with them about whatever it is that we need to change or work on or new skill we need to develop. And then at that point, we'll create a catchphrase, and then I can just say that quick catchphrase to them and they're able to move on from that. So one example I have right now of that is that my, at the time, 2-year-old, who just turned 3-year-old, was really, really struggling with the idea of not running through the house. She's just this beautiful, rambunctious, joyful child that is just bursting with energy from the moment she wakes up to the moment her eyes shut on her pillow. And I would literally say to her, "Hey, please stop running." And she would say, "Okay, Mom," and then turn around and run off. And she was not trying to be bad. She was not trying to disobey me. She just wasn't stopping and interrupting her flow to hear what I needed from her. And so one time I just stopped her and I kneeled down next to her and I said, "What's your plan when you're going? Where are you going? What's your plan for what you're doing next?" And she said, "Well, I'm going over there to play with that." And I said, "Okay, well, let's make a plan then. Look what's over there. You have to go past that table, and that chair's pulled out because somebody forgot to push it in. And your sister's over there crawling around on the floor. Do you think that maybe it would be better to walk so we don't run into things or hurt our sister?" Yeah. Okay, also if you want to run, we can go outside and play. You can make a plan to go out there, and then when you're out there, you can run. So she walked on to what she was going to do. Then the next time, about 2 minutes later, when she started running again, I said, "Hey, what's your plan?" And she stopped and she looked and she said, "Oh, I better walk past that." And we did that for a few days, and then pretty soon I didn't even have to say anything because she was slowing her mind down on her own and making her own plan because it was something she could do simply by herself. So I gave her that tool to be able to regulate her own behavior, which is what we all prefer if we can, of course, not to constantly be nagged about something and reminded about everything we're doing wrong. Well, another example I have is of my 5-year-old who just the other day was complaining to me again about how I clearly don't know what I'm talking about because the sun is shining and she doesn't need to bring a coat in the car for the trip we were going on. Well, okay, I understand it's sunny outside, but you know what? I really like to be prepared. And so I sat down and I read this book with her that we read all the time. It's called God's Wisdom for Little Girls. And one of the pages talks about God's little girl is prepared, and it has these beautiful illustrations here. And so we sat down and we read it, and it said, God's little girl is prepared for snow, sleet, or rain. And so I said, I know it's sunny right now, but it might get windy or rainy later, so let's just bring our coat just in case, so we don't have to miss out on fun because we don't have the right clothes to wear. And she took a breath and she said, yeah, God's little girl is prepared. And she grabbed her coat and she ran outside. And then later that day, when we had to go somewhere else, I said, don't forget your coat. She said, yeah, because I want to be prepared. God's little girl is prepared. And literally, that's the only time I've had that conversation with her. And it went from 1 minute arguing and complaining with me because it didn't make sense to her what I was asking her to do based on what she could see going on around her, to her self-regulating herself and remembering that when I ask her to do something, it's because we need to be prepared. And she'll say it herself. And she's very excited to have the opportunity to be prepared and to be responsible in that way. And we've literally gone from having that conversation one time before that, constantly arguing about why I need her to do this and trying to use logic with my 5-year-old to help her understand why we need to do something in a non-punitive way, to her regulating her own behavior through this quick catchphrase. So I would really challenge you to consider next time you notice a pattern with your kids that they're struggling with a skill that you're working on, sit down and have a conversation and then create a catchphrase so they can come back to that conversation, and you will be amazed at how quickly they master that skill, so that you don't have to constantly nag at them and be the bad guy, but you can have more time having fun with your kids and being a team together. I hope that helps you, and if you have any of your own catchphrases, definitely tell me in the comments below because I want to hear all about them. Have a great day, guys.